Hi, John.
Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I'm very happy to speak with you again. Last time we talked was for the Quake.
Cool. Nice to speak to you again.
Well, and once again, you have wowed me with your film. Nobody does disaster films, especially environmental disaster films, like you and the team behind the Quake and the Wave and now the Burning Sea. It's riveting, it's intense, but it's also eye-opening, and I love it.
Cool, very good to hear. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to hear that.
Now, you directed the Quake, and I was blown away with all the effects. The great bridge crash sequence goes down in history for me. But now with the Burning Sea, you're underwater. You've got some really intense visual set pieces happening here. How did you even approach taking this from the page to the screen visually? Because there's a lot of really difficult stuff happening here.
Absolutely. We wanted to, to make a film like this, we wanted to do it on real location. That was number one in the approach, trying to get access to the real places, to oil rigs. We originally thought we had to go into the studio, but then along came the pandemic, and that also really forced us to get access to real oil rigs, which is difficult. But I think the reality that led to the filming is good for the film, and I think that also makes life easier for the actors, to actually be in the real environment on a real oil rig, smelling the sea, feeling the wind, and having this really tough, greasy environment around you. I think that also helps the actors a lot.
How did you go about, because of your work as a cinematographer on prior films, you have a great idea of how to execute a lot of the visuals that you have. How did you go about staging on an oil rig a lot of the sequences? Because they're frightening, they're so dynamic, and we are living the moment with Sophia and Stian.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that, and that you experience it that way. I mean, again, it's like trying to stage this. It's a technical thing, because of course you want to shoot on real location, but you also know that there has to be a combination with visual effects and also physical effects. So we actually started first trying to solve the underwater sequences and trying to do tests, like how can we get underwater sequences to look the best, how can we do a combination of shooting for real underwater and then doing digital underwater. So doing a lot of that research was part of it, and then of course also just getting to know. I knew nothing about the oil industry when I started this film, so just doing all that research and trying to get at least a superficial grasp on what they are doing was also important to get the realism right. So I guess staging these scenes was more difficult than normal, because you're in a very hostile environment. You're not in a safe studio, but that also made it all the more exciting, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to ask you about your casting. Your three main characters, Sophia, Stian, and Arthur, absolutely amazing. We are so invested, at least I was so invested in their relationships. Arthur and Sophia, colleagues, best friends. Stian, trapped, and the only person that believes he's still alive is Sophia. And then you bring in Stian's beautiful little son, and you give us that face, and That's what pulls our heart into the severity of the situation. How difficult was it to cast this dynamic of characters?
I mean, it was difficult in a way that number one was finding the right Sophia. When we found Christine, she had just done one film before this, and it was just when we finally got her into the casting, we were just really sure that she would be the lead of the film. You know, we knew that we wanted to have a female action hero as the lead, and there's not that many female action heroes around really, and also we really didn't want that sort of, I mean, when I say action hero, we really wanted her to be a real person, feel like a real person, not a superhuman. And Christine just has this sort of, again, I call her a lie detector, because she can't do anything that it doesn't feel true to her. So she's just, it has to feel real for her to act it out. And I think that challenges me as a director, but also lends a lot of realism to her character. And I just think she was perfect for this role. And teaming her up with Ulf Christian, who plays Arthur, there were just these two guys who just had really good chemistry, which we could see already from the casting process. So he was a very natural choice for playing her friend.
That chemistry between Rolf and Christine is amazing. It is amazing. Those are the kind of colleagues and best friends everybody should have in life. Really, that really just sucks you in watching this. And then, of course, you got Henrik as Steen, and then, of course, the adorable little, that's Nils Olsen who's playing Alodin, correct? Nils is an absolute, he melts your heart. That little face, boy, oh boy, you cast a good one there, John.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's like he's not, maybe not your typical child actor. He's just got a heart for him when we got him into the casting. I think he doesn't act out like this sort of cuteness like I think some of child actors will do. But I think he also has this way of conveying some kind of vulnerability that really steals at least my heart.
Yeah, he's just absolutely wonderful. From a filmmaking standpoint, I'm really curious how the weather impacted this particular shoot. You're out there on the open sea, on platforms, on rigs, but then you've also got the weather to work with in addition to the ocean itself. Was the weather favorable to you, or did it look as bad as it looked on screen?
I mean, in real life, North Sea is one of the toughest places you can work in the world. I think it's a really tough, and the weather out there can get really, really bad. I think in a way we didn't get too much hit with bad weather, but we definitely had a lot of instances where we had to, postpone, where there was too much wind for the helicopters to fly, or there was just suddenly, we had instances where we almost swept off the whole oil rig by the wind, all of us. So we had our fair share of bad weather, but in the end, I think the weather wasn't really the main challenge. The main challenge was just, being on an oil rig. You have a very limited space. You have to act in a very particular way in terms of safety. Everything takes a lot of time. The logistical challenges was probably bigger than the weather.
What did you end up using for camera and lighting packages on this one? Because that definitely size comes into play when you're dealing with limited spaces and logistic challenges.
Yeah, that's an interesting question on this one, because we actually ended up shooting on film. I mean, actually on real good old celluloid film. And part of that was from testing, because we tested shooting digital first, because I thought, smaller cameras of digital would maybe be better, but in the end, the film camera wasn't that much bigger, and like real good old analog film just looks so good when you go into this industrial environments. You don't really have to do that much, I think, in terms of lighting and stuff to make it look cool and look good. I think that there's sort of this, I guess, the gritty quality to it that I wanted, and that I think that really we got with shooting on film.
Oh, you definitely did. Were you relying on natural light or did you bring in light kits for this?
I mean, both, I would say. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is shot in natural light, but also there's stuff that had to be lit, of course. So we have night stuff and things like that. But also a lot of the lighting on this film was about, placing lights on the locations, were preset, so we can just go into a location and shoot it without, doing too much of rigging on the day. An oil rig, again, there's so many safety concerns you have to take, and that also goes for, of course, the electricity and in terms of where you would be allowed to place lights and stuff like that. So I think the pre-production was maybe the most important in terms of the lighting here.
How long was the pre-production for this, and did you shot list or storyboard?
We did, no, the pre-production was probably, like, hard prep was probably like 3 months, but definitely did storyboards and also animatics for the visual effect sequences. So I worked with this storyboard artist Sandra that I worked with on many of my films. So we shot listed a lot of it, but also a lot of sequences I didn't want to storyboard because some certain sequences you just want to be able to be on the set and go with the flow of the location and the actors, and not having sort of the storyboards limit your placement of the camera, limit of your own imagination. But again, with visual effects sequences, we had to plan a lot of them with storyboards.
Mm-hmm. So one last question for you, John. I'm curious, after the Quake and now the Burning Sea, what is the appeal of these environmental themed films, these calls to action, these eye-opening films? What is the appeal of making these for you? Because the Quake holds a mirror up to us and our stupidity and how we deal with Mother Nature. The Burning Sea, same thing. What is the appeal for you as a filmmaker to make these films?
Well, I mean, the appeal is, of course, number one is that these are films that can give you, and I think that is perfect for the cinema. I love going to the cinema and watch films in a movie theater, and just getting into these kind of types of environments. That's something, and experience something together with characters that you can never experience in your own life. You have to go to movie theater to sort of be put into this experience. I mean, that's number one. But then also getting to have like an underlying message, like you I think very correctly said, about if you mess too much with nature will hit back. That is also, of course, part of the appeal. And this film came out at a time in Norway where we have a lot of political debates about oil drilling and how long should we keep drilling for oil, and we know we have to stop, but when do we stop? Do we really need to take up all the oil that is there? And these questions that really all comes down to how we pushed nature too far, and of course in terms of global warming. But I think that it's nice to be able to make films that are both that can be seen by a lot of people and that can be entertaining and thrilling, but at the same time have somehow an underlying message that you can take home.
Well, another film, another winner in my book, John. I can't wait to see what you bring next. I'm very anxious to see what you bring next. What next disaster can we have that slaps us in the face and says, wake up? You're the man for it, though.
Well, thank you, Debbie. It was really nice to hear that you had a good experience this time as well. That's really nice to hear.
Well, here's to the next one, John. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very nice talking to you again, Debbie.
Same here. Bye-bye.